Welcome to the Den of Tools.
Howdy ho, guys and gals, it's Red, your friendly neighborhood tool bear, back again here in the old Den of Tools. And today we're here to talk about generators. We're going to give you the up, down, ins and outs on Harbor Freight generators, which one you need, which one you would want, not want, why they're different, what's the difference between all the different models, just straighten all the craziness out. I get a lot of questions about these all the time. Now, why are we talking about this right now? Well, I think the answer is fairly obvious as to why this is a big discussion point right now. You know, there's a lot of craziness going on in the world. There's a lot of uncertainty. And as a very wise bear once said, it's smart to expect the best, but prepare for the worst. You know, it's always great. We always hope that the sun shines, but you got to be ready for when it rains. You know, a very, very wise bear said that. Anyway, Harbor Freight is nice enough to give us this little fact sheet here. Let me pop out of your way real quick. And this one tells us then, it gives us an idea about recreational home backup job site, what you're going to do. And basically the 3 steps here are the really important ones. Select the devices you want to power, not just one, all of them. If you're only powering one device, that's great. If you're powering a whole bunch, you need to figure out all of them. Choose the device that has the highest watts of starting power. So like when it kicks on, like if you're trying to run an AC, that's going to have the highest kick on kind of power there. That's why you see 2 numbers on these generators. They have the initial starting power that they need to overcome. And because it's kind of like pushing a boulder, you have to get it moving first. Once you get it moving, there's some inertia to it. And then you need to add up the running watts of all of the devices if you have everything you want to have running at once. All right. So those could be 2 entirely different numbers and often are entirely different numbers. All right. And the 2 types of generators we're going to talk about here are your basic standard generator versus what's called an inverter generator. And the difference is a standard generator has an engine of some kind that runs on a fuel converted or connected to an alternator to produce electricity. And then that goes into an electrical panel for you to plug into. An inverter generator does some wacky stuff. It takes that AC power off of the alternator, runs it through a rectifier, it converts it to DC, and then back through an inverter into AC. And that gives you a better, pure wavelength, like a sine wave kind of thing that allows you to run better power off of it. And also gets other electronics involved so that you can run, instead of having to run at full steam, like a standard generator has to run at full power all the time. This generator is usually a smarter generator, and it can power itself down. It can run at a lower power. Often the motors used in them are more fuel efficient. They usually end up costing more, but based on fuel usage, they end up usually almost always saving you money, and they're definitely quieter to use. Now, one of the key ways to tell whether you're dealing with an inverter versus a standard generator is usually the inverters look like this. They're usually a smaller, more portable, something you can grab with your hands. There's some bigger ones, but like the big generators you'll always see, they're like, they got a cage around them. They've got metal. That's a rule of thumb. That's not always a rule. So Harbor Freight's got 2 inverter generators. They've got the Predator 2000 watt super quiet generator here, $500 before any coupons or anything like that. And now this is a 2000 starting watt. And you always see this on these generators. They always use the starting wattage first because, of course, it's the biggest number and they want to use that. Now, as far as its running numbers, it's 1600 watt running numbers. So that means the most it can handle from one peak is 2000. But under standard running load is going to be 2000. This is a pretty nifty little generator, okay? It can run quite a bit of stuff. As you see, you've got several, choices as far as outputs there up front. It's got a pole start on the side. They're nice, basic little generators. Now, this one has a big brother, the 3500 watt generator, which I think is a 3000, just double checking here, 3000 watt generator, standard running power. And as you can see here, it's got even more options here. You got AC 120 there. You got the 2 standard 110 or 120s plugs. This is for connecting to a larger unit for, in fact, I'm going to say that we're going to get into that in just a minute. But before we get into that, I want to talk about real quick about usage on these. Often I see these used on campgrounds with camp trailers and stuff like that because they are quieter and they're not that stupid loud one. Most parks aren't going to let you run a generator, and if they do, they want you running an inverter generator because it's going to be quieter. It's not going to annoy the snot out of everybody. The smaller one here, the 2000 watt, has a 12-hour runtime, runs at 65 decibels. It runs off of a 79.7 cc Predator motor, and it's got a lot of nice little features to it. It's a great basic generator. The 3500, on the other hand, will run for 11 hours and runs at 57 decibels. It's even quieter than the other generator. It's running off of a 212 Predator motor. It's got, we talked about the 3500 starting watts, 3000 running watts, digital LCD screen, low oil notification, overload protection with output light indicators. It's got two 120 VAC ground outlets, one 120 VAC twist lock outlet. Again, that's for outputting to a larger unit. We're going to talk about that more in a little bit. And these are what you're going to want. Again, if noise is an issue, these are the two generators that you're going to want. Now, getting into the big standard generators. And we're going to start from the top and work our way down. We've got the Predator 9000s. This is the big boy that Harbor Freight sells. Sells for $680, and with coupon right now, it's $600. This is a large generator, all right? You've got a ton of output on here. The wheel kit and stuff, if I'm not mistaken, all of these is going to be extra. So you're going to have to buy the wheel kits, and they come with the wheels and the handle separately. You just get the cage and what's inside it, as it were. Now let me show these outputs here. So you can see we've got the 120 over here with 30 amp, okay? That's important. The 30 amps there are what we're going to need. Well, for what we're talking, and basically what I'm alluding to is houses and campers, all right? Most campers run off of a 30 amp or 50 amp circuit, so that's why that's important. Then you have the rest of your controls here. Let's go down to the specs real quick. Runtime is 13 hours. It's got electric start, which is nice. Low oil indicator, low oil shutdown, so you don't have to worry about damaging it. It runs off of a 420cc Predator motor. It has the nice steel cage there, and of course the outlets that we were talking about, as well as a GFCI outlet. So this thing's got 9,000 starting watts, 7,250 running wattage. Again, that means the most you can hook up to it is 7,250. So you're going to want to add up every little thing you've got and figure out what its running power it is. And that's how you determine if you're going to be able to run it all. All right. The next item is, oh, look, it's the same thing. Now, why is this different, Bear? Why are you showing it to me twice? Well, on the first one, if you notice down up here, it has the name of blah, 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 EPA 3. And this one, instead of saying EPA 3, says CARB. What is CARB? CARB stands for the the California Air and Resource Board, I think is what it stands for. Basically, it's a California emission standards. California's got a lot of smog and stuff they have to deal with, and they've got more vehicles and more engines. They're a lot pickier when it comes to this sort of stuff. So anybody who makes something with a motor, if they want to sell it in California, has to meet CARB compliance. So you're going to see a lot of these as an EPA 3 compliant and as a CARB compliant. All right, the next step down is the Predator 8750. This is the EPA 3 version we're looking at. It runs for $500 or $600, $50 off with a coupon. And you're going to get, again, 9 hours on this one, electric start again, running off the 420cc motor with the roll cage. You can get 4 120 duplex outlets with 3 prongs. The one of the 120 twist locks, 1 3-prong, 120/240 volt twist lock, and 1 12 volt DC output. So this is pretty nifty here. Let's see if I can get a closer look at the panel. I don't think it's going to give me anything too close there. So that gives you an idea. You got the DC, and by DC, this is your standard like cigarette lighter plug-in, which is nice because especially if you're off camping or something like that, quite often you're going to have some, automotive based appliances maybe you want to take with you. I've got a cooler that was sent to me for testing that runs off of DC power like this. So if I was at a campsite and I had something like this going, I wouldn't need a special adapter. I could plug it right in and keep cooling everything. So that's pretty nice. All right. Now next is of course the CARB version of this. They all seem to be the same price. And then we just step down to the Predator 6500 watt. Now this one sells for $500, and it's going to have 6,500 starting watts, but 5,500 running watts. It's going to run for 14 and a half hours. And it's got the low oil indicator and low oil shutdown, which again is something you're really going to want. but I don't believe that this one has the electric start. Let me just double check here. Yeah, this one's listed as recoil start, which I believe is the same as pull start. Correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe the bear's wrong about that one, but I don't see anything about electric start on this little sucker. So there you go. Anyway, that's the 6500. Now, again, we have that in the carb as well. Stepping down, we've got the clearance version of the 6500. Now, what happens often with Harbor Freight is they have ones being made by multiple different facilities, and sometimes they will clear out one, like they're not going to use that company anymore, and they'll be clearing that out. So you keep an eye on that. Also, these are really good to pick up from parking lot sales or getting the factory refurbished models. If you do go that route, always opt for the extended warranty, okay? Now, then we have the Predator 4375. I always thought this was a bit of an oddball one in here, but it's a 3500 running amperage or running wattage versus the peak starting wattage here. And again, let's take a look at the panel there, and we can see we've got one of the 120 outs. We've got two of the 120 duplex. We've got the DC as well. We got the breakers built into the front panel, like we have on all of them. The low oil alert. Let's see if it has the low oil shut off. I think it does. It does. The low oil shutdown as well. This is running off of the 212 as well. So you get the four 120 GFCI outlets, 3-prong, one of the 120 twist locks, 120/240, sorry, and 4 prongs on that, and you get the 12-volt DC as well. And again, this is a recoil start as well. And of course, we have the carb version of it because California has to have their say. All right, and here we have one of the more bargain level ones that's probably one of the best, bang for the buck kind of stuff. It's not the quietest one out there. I'm going to say that right now. And that's the Predator 4000. I think it's a 3000 or 3200 watt. Let me roll down here and check. 3200 continuous watt, 4000 start. It'll output 120, 240 VAC. It's got a 12 volt on it as well. It's got the two, standard, 4, I guess, total of the 120s. It's pull start as well. And it's got the low oil indicator and low oil shutdown, which is great. And again, coupon price on this is $300. Now, again, as I said, this is not going to be the quietest one out there, but it's going to get you probably the most bang for the buck in it. Next up, we got this in carb. All right, this one, I get asked about this one all the time. The Tailgater. Okay, now this is a 5,000 starting wattage. Okay, I'm joking. 900 watt max voltage, okay? And the peak voltage on it is 700. This thing is tiny. It's noisy as all heck. Runs for 5 hours. Runs off a 63 little tiny 2-cycle engine, all right? It's got one 120 volt grounded receptacle. You're going to run one thing off of this, all right? So you got to pick what that one thing is, and you're not going to run anything else. And it's, shut up, Moto. And it's going to be noisy. It's going to be loud. I hate these things. I hate them with a passion. But for $100, if you just need something, I guess it's better than a sharp stick in the eye. It's got some decent reviews here. I've heard good things. I've heard bad things about it. I think mostly the bad things are people wanting to do more with it than what it is. If you realize, hey, this is a $100 generator, it's a $100 generator, okay? You get, you're going to get out of it what it has, and that's about it. All right, now moving on. They have this. Now I'm including this because this is a little bit kind of quirky here. This is a DIY generator, all right? This is the power head unit that you can make your own generator. All right, it's got a drive shaft on the back. However you decide to drive this, if you're going to drive it with gas, wind, belt driven, pedal driven, whatever you're going to do, and then you've got an electrical front panel where you've got a 4-prong, two prongs, you got your breakers, you have some meters there. You can build your own 10,000 max starting, 7,200 running. You could build one heck of a generator off of this for $329. So this is if you're going to be hardcore off the grid, you've got your own source of power, but you need to convert it to something else. This is the puppy that'll do it. Now, if you're out on the farm, This is something a little bit different. I just want to touch on base that they have this. This is a PTO generator, okay? So you can connect it to a PTO drive and take power and convert that PTO drive into electrical power. This is a pretty nifty kind of concept, all right? So if you don't know what a PTO drive is, PTO stands, I believe, stands for power takeoff. Old army trucks, tractors, Jeeps, and stuff like that used to have these, fairly common. And it was basically another way to connect directly to the drivetrain of the motor. So you could drive your truck right up to this, connect your truck via this drive linkage, and it would turn an alternator down here and you get power off of it. $1,500, you are going to need to probably bolt this to the ground, maybe put a cement pad down on and bolt that to that, because there's a lot of physical kinetic force here going along with this PTO drive, and you don't want this thing swinging around on you. All right. Now, we talked about all this stuff. Now, how do you use this is what you're asking the bear. It's like, great, zombies show up, the Rona zombies. What do we do? Well, there's 3 ways to connect this to your house. Okay, we're talking about connecting it to your house, and then we're going to talk about connecting it to your RV. If you're connecting it to your house, the first way is to have an electrician come out, and I'm talking legal. These are legal ways to do this, or at least legal, generally legal. You're going to have to consult local ordinances and stuff, and check with the local laws on this. But first way is to have a transfer switch and panel. All right. And what you have here is basically this is your main panel over here. And then you're going to have this transfer switch here in the middle. And then you're going to have a secondary panel. And the secondary panel is going to run to all the stuff that's like essential that needs to be run. And when you come over here with the switch, when you throw that switch, it's going to cut off all power that could go back out through the mains to the power lines to the power company and stuff. And it's going to cut you off from the grid. And then it's going to just connect then any power coming from the outside. And by outside, I mean your generator. You're going to have a plug where you literally plug your house into this box. So it plugs in, goes through the transfer switch and panel, and then basically everything off of that panel runs, and that's how you handle it. It's probably the best way, I think, to possibly do this. It's the cleanest, it gives you the most control, and it's the safest way to do it. Now, it's going to be a little bit pricey. The panel itself is going to run between, let's say, $300 to $500 or $500 to $1,000, depending on how many wattage how many watts the power panel is, and how much your electrician charges to install it. Basically, what I found is it's going to be about double. If you get a $300 panel, it's going to cost you about $300 to get it installed. If you get a 500 watt panel, it's going to cost you about 500 watts to get it installed. That's just kind of a rule of thumb. Maybe you got a buddy who'll give you a hookup or something. That's great. The other way to do it is with one of these meter mounted transfer switches. It's essentially that same transfer switch in a little column that goes in behind your meter. Again, you have to have an electrician come out and install it. It costs a little bit more because there's a lot of electronics built into this little sucker here. But it's easier for them to install. I mean, it's like a 5-minute job. They just have to unbolt this, bolt this, snap it back in, clamp it all back down, and then test to make sure everything works, and you're good to go. So it's going to cost a little bit more up front, but you're going to save a lot on the installation. The problem with this, though, is then you have to go to your panel and turn off any of the circuits that can't be supported or shouldn't be supported, like maybe your water heater or something like that, because it's all going to be dependent on the size of the generator you have. And even with a big generator, if you have a decent sized house, it's not going to be able to run everything. So you're going to have to pick and choose what's going to get run. Kids' room, probably getting turned off. They don't deserve it anyway. But this is an exploded diagram showing you exactly how this works. It literally just goes between the box and the meter, and it has a plug on the bottom rather than a plug on the house. It's a nice, simple, easy way to do it. There's no more panels and stuff in your house. Not as elegant, but a little bit cheaper in the long run than going with the full switch and panel. Okay, and then the third way that we do this is going to be a bit more technical. All right, it's going to cost less, but it's going to take some skill here. And what you're going to do is you're going to run extension cords from the stuff you want to run through the house and out the sliding glass door or out a window, okay? Got to be very careful when you're doing this so you don't get your thumb caught in there, all right? And you're just going to plug them straight into the generator. This is cheap. It is legal to do. You're going to be very limited by what you can plug in, and there's practically no way you're going to be able to safely plug in enough stuff to really tap into the full power of the generator. You just aren't. There's just no way that those extension cords can handle that much wattage. Because when you run, it'll get hot. And don't even try, okay? Don't try. You just don't plug in like one extension cord and then plug in a power strip and then plug like 5 power strips into that power strip. That's how fires start. We don't want any of that, okay? So this is the cheap, easy version. This is the middle of the road version. And this is the I'm serious about staying off the grid when I need to be off the grid version. Okay, now campers. So when you're camping, your RV or your trailer, there's usually a 50 amp, a 30 amp, and sometimes a 15 amp, basically like your typical house current. You'll see that on like pop-ups and stuff, some of the less expensive stuff. All right, the trailer we had, or the RV, we had a Class A. It was, I think it was 10 years old, and it had a 30 amp circuit. The bigger ones are going to have 50 amp circuits. Well, how do you power one of those if you've got, like, say, you've got a couple of these inverter generators, you know, maybe this one. How do you get that much power out of them? Well, here's the deal. You can connect multiple inverter generators together because they're crafty enough. They let you do that. And you use a device like this. Hold on. This device lets you connect in parallel 2 inverter generators. Okay. And it literally, they see these the blue, red, and the green, yellow cord down there. There are outputs on the front of these generators to plug 2 of these into this box. And then what you have is you have an output on the left, which is RV ready. It's a 30 amp RV outlet right there for 125. Just, you can plug your RV directly into this, or your camper or whatever. And then the other side, you've got your typical 120 volt 30 amp twist lock output as well. So, and this is a weatherproof housing. You know, if you're looking for a real way to hook up your RVs, also have a backup for your house, all sorts of stuff, this is the way to go if you're going to use the inverter generators. And I got to tell you, you know, it's $70 for this plus 2 generators. It's not the cheapest way to go, but it will get the job done. Well, anyway, there you go. There you have it. That's the ins and outs of the Harbor Freight generators. I hope I answered all your questions. If not, be sure to post them down below. If there's another category here at Harbor Freight you want me to cover next, let me know what it is, because I get a lot of questions about all these different areas, and people are confused about, well, what does this mean? And what does that mean? And why do they name it this? And why do they name it that? And what's the difference between these 2 items? So I've decided, you know, because of the shutdown and stuff, what a great time to go through and kind of give an explanation to everything that's going on over there, so everyone can tell this is what these different brands mean, and this is what these different options are, and why you might want them. Anyway, hope the bear helped you out. Anyway, you all take care, stay safe, God bless, and as always, shine on.